First up, we have Shana Pereira. Born a kid with big dreams in Darwin, Australia, Shana found her successful career in advertising disrupted by a failing kidney and heart. When she found she needed a double transplant, she authentically and rebelliously approached her treatment like an agency project, hiring and firing doctors until she had a care team who shared her values and approached their work like she did, with a commitment to excellence and a belief that anything is possible. Here to tell her story, please welcome Shana Pereira.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm Shana and I have an accent. It is Australian. I was born and bred in a town called Darwin, a small town called Darwin. And most Australians who meet me, they wonder how I survived the Australian outback to be here with you today. So, um, I have been on a very wild journey. And as mentioned, I found myself in a medical crisis. It was Christmas Eve, 2015. I had gone home to celebrate having won 30 industry awards that year for my work in media and digital advertising specifically. And I thought, perfect timing to go home to my family, to reset, celebrate with them, and then come back and start a new year here in the US. And lo and behold, there I was, Christmas Eve, sitting in the ER in front of a doctor who was telling me that my kidneys were failing out of seemingly nowhere. And I thought, what is he talking about? I couldn't even fathom what he was saying to even begin to process it. And I spent the night of Christmas Eve in the same hospital in which I was born, wondering, how did I get here? I had spent a good part of my life, 35 years of my life, either imagining how I was going to leave this small town and travel the world, or being out in the world and having immigrated to the US, only to come back to this hospital. And I thought, I'm going to die here. Instead, I came back to the US and I started to delve into what was the journey of finding my doctors. And at the time, I realized I hadn't been to the doctor in years. And I asked myself, why? And it was because I hated the doctor's office. I didn't like the smell. I didn't like the energy. The vibe was off. Everything about it just was not my scene at all. And as I was sitting there, I got a Facebook post that actually gave me a doctor's office that I loved. And that began my journey. Also, the synchronicities that were beginning to emerge inside of such a crisis were mind-blowing. I had remembered that 2 years before my kidneys failed, I had worked on a project while teaching a college class where one of the project companies was the National Kidney Foundation. And I was able to reach out to the president of the National Kidney Foundation, who started me on a journey with her board members who were nephrologists, kidney doctors, in helping me determine who was going to be right for me. Looking back now, I know that was a huge privilege and a synchronicity from the universe, God, energy, source, whatever you believe in, but it's that higher power that really guided these moments that were coming back to truly support me. Fast forward to 2018, and we found a kidney donor. Her name is Katie, and she lives on the East Coast. She's an amazing individual. And she actually heard my story on a podcast that a friend was sharing on my behalf. And she called and said, I don't know you, but I really want to give you my kidney. I was amazed, as you can imagine, at how this person who had no clue who I was just so ready and willing to save my life. We went through the testing, and the testing that would normally take 6 months to a year took close to 2 years because of COVID. Kidney transplants are an elective surgery, which is what I found out while in a pandemic. And so they were on hold while the pandemic was hitting us to folks, as they were elective surgeries, which is a conversation I could go on and on for days about, and I will spare you. But we finally got approved, and at this point, it was Labor Day 2020, and all I had to do was a stress test and a CT scan to schedule the surgery. I couldn't have been happier. Katie was excited. We were completely ready to go. Well, a week later, my CT scan came back, and the CT scan came back showing that my right kidney had 70% chance of being cancerous with a cyst. And I thought, I'm going to die. Like, that is a sign from the universe, from, God, the energy, whatever the higher power is telling me, you're not meant to be here. You are not going to survive this. After 2 days of crying, I woke up and I thought, you know what? I'm feeling okay now. Let me just go out, run a couple of errands, and just pretend like it's a normal day. While I headed out, the phone rang, and it was the cardiologist. And he called to tell me that my heart was now failing as well. And I thought, for sure, I'm dead. This was the universe saying to me, if you thought there was a sign that you were meant to live, let's give you double confirmation to make sure that you know you are not meant to be here, that this is your time is up, and you're not meant to survive this. And I thought, I'm dead. It's over for me. I called my best friend and I shared with her what was happening. And her reaction is one that will go down in history, where she said, this is going to be amazing. You are going to get your kidney removed at Thanksgiving, and it's going to come back, and it's going to be non-cancerous. And then we're going to move on to the next step, where we're going to get you back on the heart and kidney transplant list. And then you're going to receive a heart and kidney at Christmas, and it's going to be a Christmas miracle. And we're going to make a Christmas movie. This is going to be amazing. And I thought, well, right now, the movie that I was in was Final Destination. You know that movie where if the car accident didn't kill the person, the microwave blows up. And that's what does it. That's how I felt. I felt like I was fated with death chasing me. And so I thought her movie sounds way better. Hallmark movies always work out. Christmas miracle movies always work out. So I'm jumping in her movie. And from that point forward, we started saying, we're making a Christmas movie and we need a Christmas miracle. Lo and behold, the doctors called and they scheduled my surgery to remove my kidney that could have been cancerous on Thanksgiving. And when they did, it came back as not cancerous. And so I started to feel like, okay, maybe what she had said is actually going to come true. Fast forward, it was the beginning of December when I had healed from that surgery. And we now needed to get me on the heart and kidney transplant list. And us wanting a Christmas miracle, it needed to be done with urgency. The challenge that stood in the way was getting clearances done, which were about 25 to 30 clearances of specialist doctors in a couple of weeks before Christmas, which, if any of you know what that's like, would never have happened. But amazingly, every single one of them had a spare appointment, an extra appointment, were willing to stay late. and I was approved to be back on the kidney and heart transplant list on Christmas Eve. The doctors had admitted me into the hospital, and now me being on the list, the doctors said we've done everything humanly possible. The average wait time for a heart and a kidney at the level of sickness in which you are is around 2 months. It'll be 6 to 8 weeks, they said. And I said, it's impossible. It has to be a Christmas miracle. So it has to be tomorrow. It has to come. And on Christmas Day at 10 p.m., with 3,000 people praying for me all over the world, because we were in lockdown, all we could do was pray online. In all religions, in all ways, everybody's unique way of calling upon anything that we could to say, can we have a Christmas miracle? At 10 p.m., they called and said, we have a heart and a kidney for you. And the entire floor erupted in cheers. We were so excited. And all of a sudden, this eerie silence fell upon everyone, the nurses and the doctors that were around me. And it was like this realization that, wow, this really works. The power of collective communion and collective manifestation, collective prayer. This really works, because there was no data, there was no medical, there was no science, there was no reality at all that was there that would say that this should have happened. The next day, the doctors who were doing the surgeries came in to celebrate, and they were so excited. Shana, you're our Christmas miracle. My God, this is amazing. And as they're standing in front of me, I flatline 3 hours before surgery. And that's when it became a real miracle. In that flatlining, I remembered the 3 phases of dying and being on the other side, and then coming back through those phases. And I had what culture calls an NDE. I call it a death experience. Culture calls it a near-death experience. But I was clear in the moment that I was not alive. In coming back through, I woke up to chest compressions, and I sat up and said, guys, relax. I just took a little nap. Where were we? And in that moment, the doctors realized that a real miracle had happened. They raced me into surgery. My heart wasn't there yet. They kept my heart beating manually for 4 hours as my other heart was coming in a helicopter, and my kidney was coming by road. And after a 28-hour surgery, I woke up probably 36 to 48 hours later. And 3 days after that, I was walking. The point in me sharing my story today is for any of you who are facing a crisis, who have found yourself in a medical diagnosis that was completely unexpected, or even for those of you who are just struggling with something that you thought would never happen, that you've been resigned of thinking, maybe this is just the way it has to be. Please take my example and use me as an example that even when you think it's the end, or even when you think it's not going to work out, even when you think it is your last breath, it may not be. It may not be. There is always a possibility. And if you're going through it, please just keep moving forward. You never, ever know what plot twist is waiting for you in the next minute, in the next hour. And during that time period, my aunt, who's an amazing woman, I called her at the beginning of the experience and I said, I'm really scared I'm going to die. And her feedback to me was, yes, you might. This is very serious. But either way, you're taken care of. So the real question to ask is, what are you going to do with the time that you have on earth? And today I'll leave you with those wise words from my aunt. And thank you. Thank you so much for listening and for being here with me. You could be anywhere. And the fact that you've chosen to be here with us and spend your time with us is really meaningful to me. Thank you.